Today, we're going to talk about how to build a worship culture at your church. Let's go. What's going on, family? It's Michael here, and I help worship leaders grow spiritually and practically so that they can lead worship more effectively. And today we're talking about how do you build a worship culture. But before we get started, I want you to check out something. It's called my Worship Leader Toolkit. Inside this toolkit, it has 4 different guides that's going to help you lead songs with confidence, run your rehearsals, and it's even going to show you how to pick the right songs for your church. So go ahead to my website, michaeleagle.com/toolkit, and get access to it today. Let's jump into today's video. So building a worship culture at your church, I'm going to say this first. It's not easy. It's going to take time. You're going to need to do some of the same mundane things over and over and over again. But I promise you, in the end, it's going to be so rewarding. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is to first discover what is the culture of your church. You need to look at your whole church and find out what is it that's different about us, because every church has their own unique sound. Every church has their own unique style. Every church has their own unique setting of how they do worship. Everything is different church to church to church. So what you need to first do is discover the culture of your church. You want to look at the demographic of your church. You want to look at the style of your church. You want to have conversations with your pastor and even ask them, what do they think the culture is and what type of songs would fit that culture? And once you find out the culture, you want to either dialogue with your pastor to figure out if you guys want to change the culture or if you want to feed the culture. Some of our churches, the worship culture there is dead, and the pastor actually is yearning for someone to come and help change that worship culture. Some of us have great worship culture, and we need to fan the flame of that. So keep that going. So you need to first find out what is the culture, and then that'll be your first step. The second thing that you need to do to build a worship culture is to teach. Teach. I am a huge advocate for teaching. And you can do this during worship. You can use scriptures. You can use songs to teach. You can even do small, and I mean small, little sermonettes in between songs to explain what God is doing in the midst, or explain what the next song means, or explain how to engage with God. Or even outside of those main worship services, you can have a worship night. And in that worship night, you can teach yourself or invite someone in to come and teach. And then begin to demonstrate that teaching right there in the worship night. You have to teach. We're going to get back to the video, but I had to stop and let you know that I've released my first book called The Art of Leading Worship. This book is a roadmap to worship leaders, taking you and giving you everything that you need to know to lead worship and lead encounters with God powerfully. I've packed so much information into this that anyone will be blessed to read it. Go to the link below and get yours copied today. Number 3 actually ties into number 2. It's a form of teaching where you have to demonstrate. You have to give people examples of what worship looks like. You have to give people examples of an outward expression of what worship is. That means you, worship leader, have to be lifting your hands. You, worship leader, have to be singing. You, worship leader, has to be crying. You, worship leader, has to lift up your voice and go after God with all that you got. You have to be the example. You've got to be the demonstrator. And not just you, but the people singing behind you. You want to make sure that they're engaged with worship. You want to make sure that they're living a life that shows us what worship is. And that's how you'll get people to engage, because many people are looking to you to learn. And the very last thing that you can do to build a worship culture at your church is to partner with your pastor. Look, your pastor is the voice of the church. So if you can partner with him or her and ask them to teach on worship, of course it's going to change the culture of the house. Ask them to share a few scriptures on worship. Ask them to do a deep dive teaching on worship. Your pastor is that lead set person. So if they are talking and teaching on worship, it's going to help the people understand more about worship. Another thing you can ask your pastor to do is to demonstrate worship. I know a lot of worship leaders are frustrated because they say, hey, my pastor be in a green room or my pastor be in his office until he comes in. Hey, have a conversation. Maybe your pastor is trying to eat before service. Maybe your pastor has a meeting before service. If you have a conversation with them and say, hey, I'm your worship leader and I'm trying my best to build a worship culture here. I'm asking if you could just come out during worship and show the people what it means to worship. And when the people see their pastor lifting their hands and going after God, I promise you, everybody's going to follow suit. I hope those tips blessed you. Again, you can get access to my worship leader toolkit. Inside of that toolkit, it has a couple guides that can help you lead rehearsals better, lead worship better, and find songs better. I hope this video blessed you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.